And hello, everybody. We are live, and welcome back to the Man Cave. My name is Paul Knapp, and I will be your host for tonight. We have a group of gentlemen here who are into plastic toy soldiers. This will be the first time. This is episode number 20 for me, and it'll be the first time that we ever talked about 1/32 scale toy soldiers. So if you're into that, hopefully you guys will be chatting in tonight. I got a few plugs I want to do for a few channels that I subscribed to this past month. Tidarium Hanger, if you're into Star Wars like I am. Make sure you check out Tidarium Hanger, a Plastic Commander, and Geek Dad Life. I think we're all geek dads, so you might want to check out Geek Dad Life. I'd like to thank a few new subscribers to my channel, David Mamone, Terrence Flynn, and this last one was Michael Myers. I sure hope it's not the Michael Myers most people are familiar with. I hope it's a real person. One announcement for next week, the 26th of June. My special guest will be, I don't know yet. It might be GIA. Hello, GIA. How you doing tonight? Gage, thanks for joining us. Might be one of you two. So if you guys want to be on the show next week, I'm still waiting to hear from my special guest who is overseas, and the Monday night time frame may not work for him. So we're not sure who the special guest is going to be next week. So we do have some special guests tonight. Matter of fact, only one has been on my show before. These other two guys are brand new to my show. These gentlemen are into 1/32 scale toy soldiers, and they also are collectors. And I believe two of them have never even done a live stream before. I'll have to check with that. So let's go into some introductions, shall we? This gentleman was up first, so I'm going to bring this guy up first. All right. So my introduction for you tonight, sir. You are known as the OG in Park Rangers. He knows more about the Civil War than General Lee himself. His favorite line is, "Get off that cannon." He hails from Maryland, and we're not sure if he's a Yankee or a Rebel. This is Mannie Gentile. Woo!
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Welcome aboard. This gentleman has been on my show before.
How's
The only gentleman willing to come back for a second time. What the hell is wrong with this guy?
Yeah.
He comes to us from Illinois.
Surrounded by corn.
we're on that weird central time frame or time schedule thing is. At his full-time job, he's an engineer, but he really just uses that as an excuse to make 3D toy parts. This is Mr. Brad Curry. Woo!
Thank you. Good to be here.
Welcome back, brother. Welcome back. And somebody new to my channel. When they said plastic toy soldier industry was dead, this guy said, "Oh yeah, watch me."
You're just resting a bit.
He's been called many things like Mr. BMC, the Timmy Man, the Plastic Creator. You may have seen him on the TV show The Office, all the way from Scranton, PA. This is Jeff Imel. Or Imel, I'm not sure.
It's Imel.
Imel. Sorry, my fault.
It's all right.
So welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. So we're missing two of our guests tonight. I have not heard back from them, but if they pop in, we can stick them in here. So do have some people texting in tonight. Gage has been on our show before. He's a big-time 1/6 scale guy. And Gary Curtis, he always joins us. GIA is from Canada, and he wants to be on the show sometime, so we're going to get that guy on the show. But without further ado, I always do one thing when I have guests on. I go around and I ask them, what's new in the zoo? So whatever your project you're working on or whatever's going on, and the 3D printing life for you, Brad, or Jeff, if you're doing something new out there. Manny, I'm going to start off with you since you were the first one to chime in tonight, so I'm going to bring you up big here. And what is new in your zoo, brother?
Well, I got a couple of things going simultaneously. One is I'm doing this 1/32 Guns of Navarone scenario for the blog, which is going to be multi-installment extravaganza. And then this thing that's been hanging fire for 3 years now is I want to do a Battle of Guam scenario. And I've been preparing for that for a long time, getting materials together. And it turns out Navarone is turning out to be a good dry run for what I'm going to do with the Battle of Guam.
Awesome, man. Mr. Brad Curry, what's new in your zoo, brother?
Oh, I'm kind of the same way. I've got too many irons in the fire right now, but of course, we're getting ready for the Kentuckiana G.I. Joe show down in Louisville, and I've got all sorts of stuff getting ready for that. Lots of different projects and some specials that are going to be add-on sets that are being done for that, including this huge diorama that I'm hoping that I can get finished and down there on time, kind of the secret mission to Spy Island type thing. And then on this side, I've been kind of doing some smaller scale buildings or different facades to go with the play sets that I have on this side. So that's kind of in this area. On the professional side, getting ready for my classes that I teach in the fall, doing some thermal forming and some other manufacturing techniques, a couple other molds that I'm making, and some machining that I'm looking to incorporate some of this stuff so I can do some more molding as well as the 3D printing. Because as much as, I've mentioned this before, 3D printing for me is a love-hate relationship. When everything is going great, you love it. When everything starts to go bad, you hate it. And definitely if you can get molded parts, and the molds are, in some ways easier once you've got the molds made. So that's kind of my corner of the world and where I'm heading, what some of the stuff that I've got going on at the moment.
Very cool. And Jeff, what's new in your zoo, brother, up there in Scranton, Pennsylvania?
Oh gosh, two main initiatives right now are to get the Timmy toy line back up and running fully in Pennsylvania, because the factory closed in Michigan in 2021. So it's all been about axles the past month and figuring out the best axle design and getting those things made. And then on the imported stuff, I'm working with the guys from Classic Toy Soldiers to bring their line into the toy market. And so I've just been hitting it hard, getting some of that stuff in time for hopefully in time for Christmas this year. So, and kind of repackaging it in different little sets and things like that. Those are the two big things right now. And then also got to get the Hercules back up and running, the big AC 130 Timmy toy plane, the 2-foot long one. That's something we're still working on.
Are you going to be making that in all colors or just the green and tan still?
The initial run is going to be your OD green, Army green, tan, and gray. So gray is going to be a new one, and we're going to do black accents for it. So the accessories, like the propellers and stuff, are going to be black on that version of it. So that's the only new color we're doing out of the box on that one, and we'll see how it goes.
Very cool. All right, gentlemen. Mr. GIA in Canada said he used to play with the Airfix, Japanese Aussie Jungle Fighters. You guys remember those, or are you strictly Marks guys, you three, when you were younger?
Whatever my parents would bring home to me is what I played with.
Yeah, I've got a couple of the Airfix sets. Not too much in the Tamiya stuff, but I definitely have some of the Airfix.
Yeah, Jeff?
No, I really didn't have. I had some hand-me-down Cowboys and Indians that were probably Marks, maybe Timmy. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And I definitely had some Timmy dinosaurs, things like that. I had lots of Cowboys and Indians, though, mainly.
Sure. So I sent out a list of questions for you guys. So I'm going to run down those, and we're just going to kind of go round robin here. Why Toy Soldiers, and specifically, was it 1/32 scale when you're growing up, or did you have a different scale? Let's go in reverse. Brad?
Yeah, well, for me, it was predominantly the Marks toys, especially the Guns of Navarone. That was the set that I had and played with the most. I think my older brother had the Fort Apache play set, so I just always loved to play with those. Probably one outside of G.I. Joe is probably the set that I played with the most, and it would be a Saturday afternoon where we'd set the stuff up, and then of course we'd have battles and rubber band guns where we'd sit there and fling rubber bands at the toy soldiers and see who could knock down. I will say that my brother usually cheated though, so that's kind of what older brothers do. So
how about you, Jeff? Growing up,
I always liked that, that 1/32 scale. It's just you can still get a lot of detail, and so I was always fascinated by the detail on the older stuff that I inherited. And,
did you ever have 1/72? Or I never even knew it existed, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I might have seen it in stores, but I never actually had any of it.
Yeah, I never did either.
I was probably figured I would just lose it immediately. It was probably the thought process. So.
Yeah. Manny?
Well, for me, it was the, let's see, when I was 9, my parents got me the Mark's Giant Blue and Gray, which had an incredible impact on me to the point that 3 years ago, I retired from the National Park Service, where I was a battlefield ranger, and those two events were directly related. So I owe my career to Louis Marks.
That's awesome, man. And you're still collecting, yes?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Happily so.
Well, I see the helmets in the background. We'll go in reverse order. Anything else you collect, Manny? Besides those things hanging on the shelf?
Toy soldiers and helmets are pretty much it.
Is it always World War II, or it doesn't matter?
The helmets are
yeah.
just combat helmets of the 20th century. So if it's 20th century, it's fair game. As far as toy soldiers, Civil War or World War II.
Stick to those two eras, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, Manny, how many helmets, 20th century helmets, do you actually have in your collection there?
148.
Wow.
It will always be 148 because that's the available wall space. So if one comes in, one's got to go out.
Well, does it go out just like in a box in an attic or a basement? Because sometimes I switch my stuff out every now and then, just because there's things that I definitely don't want to get rid of. So
I sever ties. I put it in a wicker basket and send it down the Nile River like Moses.
Gotcha. Now I'm curious too. So because Paul and I both know what some of the holy grails are in the Joe collecting community, and I know what some of the holy grails are here in the Mark's collecting community. What are some of the holy grails there in the 20th century helmet collecting community?
I have 2 of the 3. Last year I got, well, they're obscure names. One is an Austrian Berndorfer helmet, rare as hen's teeth. I got one last year. Another one is the German cutout. It's the regular German helmet profile, but there's a cutout. I got one of those last year. And then the holy grail, the white whale, is the visorless Turkish M18 from World War I. Nobody's got one of those.
Does it exist?
It exists, and I would take probably a 3rd mortgage to get that on that wall back there.
But it's worth it. Where'd I leave off? Jeff, same question to you. Anything else you collect? Are you strictly dealer now, or do you collect for yourself still?
I collect plastic injection molds at this point.
Oh, the mold.
Yeah.
You're still looking for the Mark's German set, right?
That one I fear is lost to the ages.
Oh, man, dude.
The trail has run.
So many people talk about that. I was like, I don't even know if it exists.
Yeah, probably, most likely not. It seems that one's gone. But there's a lot of them out there still.
Michael Burke joined us. Thank you. Logic Blaster. He always follows my channel. I appreciate you chiming in tonight. Mr. Logic Blaster, if you collected toy soldiers, let us know. Same with you, Michael Burke. What else do you collect there, Mr. G.I. Joe, 3D printer?
Well, the bulk of my collection is the adventure team stuff from the 70s. But, yeah, I kind of I dabble in a little bit of everything. Between G.I. Joe, Mark's Johnny West stuff, I've got the Mark's Ready Gang. Actually, the Mark's Ready Gang is what I consider the ultimate. You really have to hand it to the Mark's crafts people, for the detail and everything that they were able to put into a toy. I mean, just the attention to detail is amazing. And, the Mark's Ready Gang is one of my favorite lines to collect. It's kind of outside of what we're talking about tonight, but it was definitely probably 20 years ahead of its time in terms of mold making technology as that. And other action figures of the 70s, and then of course anything that has to do with play sets and Little Green Army Men or Blue and Gray, predominantly Civil War and World War II stuff as well.
Gotcha. I just got a text from Rick Eber. He said he can't get it to work, so I told him if he goes online and chats in, we'll read his chats off, and at least we can hook him up that way. All right, my next question. What was your best childhood memory regarding your toys or toy soldiers? Doesn't have to be toy soldiers specifically, but I always like to hear what other guys had. So Go ahead, Jeff. Your turn. Start it off.
Oh man.
Got a favorite
For me,
childhood
probably
memory?
because of the time I was born, it was the Star Wars guys. So
Sure.
the Star Wars action figures from Kenner. I got like 4 of those for Easter one year, and that was the best thing ever.
Yeah. Manny?
I already alluded to it. I will always remember my mother would make a scavenger hunt out of us finding our birthday presents. And I will always remember the moment when I went up onto the front porch, the last clue, the last stop, and there in all of its magnificence, the giant blue and gray.
Giant blue and gray, huh? Brad, I don't know if I asked you this question last time you were on the show. Did I?
You probably did. I don't really remember, but I'm probably going to give you a different answer this time too, just because of the topic that we're on. But one of my favorite memories from my childhood was Christmas time when I got the Navarone playset. Actually, my older brother was the one. We always gave. My mom would give us like $10, or we would use our paper route money. We had like a $10 limit to buy each of my brother, and my brother would buy me a gift for Christmas. And that was one of my favorite sets. And of course, it was a markdown. I think the Navarone set was a markdown for $10. I think I got it in 1981, a Christmas of 1981. And that, like I said, I just played the heck out of that. And then in addition to that, I would also take girders and panels. I don't know if you guys recall.
Oh, yeah.
Girders and
I remember
panels.
girl panel. Yeah.
I would build all sorts of buildings with the girders and panels, and then have all my Army guys and girders and panels. And, that was one of the things. Unfortunately, a lot of my Army guys didn't survive because they were the one toy that my mom would let me take as an outside toy. Growing up, we had outside toys and we had inside toys. My 12-inch GI Joes were inside toys only. She never let me take those out, so they survived a little bit better than the outside toys did, because I lost most of my Army guys in our sandbox in the backyard out in the country. I have sometimes wanted to go and knock on the homeowner's door and ask them if I can dig around in their backyard to see if I can dig up any of my old toy soldiers, but I don't think they're going to let me do that.
Speaking of digging up, all you guys are Marks collectors, I'm sure. Did you ever go to the Big Dig in West Virginia to try to find anything?
No.
Jeff,
No.
you ever been there?
No, never.
Heard lots of good stories about it. So
I've seen
I've
videos.
heard all the
and I've heard
legends.
stories.
Mm-hmm.
Playset Magazine just had an article on
Well, I
it.
was gonna say, if you subscribe
there.
to, I got the videos, and I think it was the first or second video that he went on a trip, and I'm pretty sure I know the guy that took him on there on that trip to go dig.
I have a couple of dig pieces that I've gotten off of other collectors, but I've never actually done a dig.
I'm pretty sure Rick Eber just goes there every week and digs stuff up, because every time I see it in a show, he's got more and more. I'm like, how did you find a Custer figure? Come on, man. Like, he'll have 4 of them lined up. I'm like, come on. You're not finding that in the wild, man.
He does seem to find the stuff. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Hey, my next question to all you guys.
I would like to see someone do a 15, 20-minute video documentary on that dump and the exploration of that dump, because so much cool stuff comes out of it, and there's a real story there. I'd like to see someone do that.
Yeah, George Kroll lives pretty close to that. I'm sure you guys have seen his collection. You know him, George Kroll? Man.
I'm not.
I did 2 videos on him. He invited me to his house, and holy crap. He collects store displays from like Sears or whatever, the boards themselves. And he doesn't, that's what he collects. Nothing else but those. And he has like every one of every, oh my gosh.
Paul, why don't you take your camera to the dump and do a program about that?
The private property that you can be shot at in West Virginia? Yeah, sure. I'd love to do that.
There's that.
That'd make a great TikTok video, right?
I'd watch it.
Hey, when did collecting become serious for you guys? When did the kid era phase out, or did it ever? And then became an adult collector, Brad?
Well, I would say I got married to my first wife in 1993, and that Christmas we were walking around the toy stores looking for something for my nephews, who I think were like maybe 6 and 4 at the time. And I happened to see that's when they had brought back the Hall of Fame G.I. Joe. And that kind of got me started back into that. I think about a year and a half later, my mom and dad downsized and moved, and my mom was like, "Hey, we got all your stuff. Come and get your stuff." So that's when I got my Navarone and my GI Joe stuff and everything back that was what was left of my childhood toys. And then, of course, I've just added from there. I mean, for me, I didn't have a whole lot of toys growing up as a kid, so I've definitely made up for the lost time in that since I've been adult. And of course, when people come over and see my collection, it's a mess right now. But when they do come over and we have people over and they see my collection, they're always kind of amazed and astounded. And it's like, it didn't just happen overnight. I mean, I've been doing this since 1993. So, and I've been buying, selling, dealing. Yeah. We opened our toy store back when I had the brick and mortar toy store back in 2007. So a lot of my collection was on display there. And at that point, and I bought up other stuff at that point to put in the collection. And then, of course, when we closed, I have all that stuff. So I still have a whole bunch of plastic lunch boxes that were bought up for that. So if anybody's into plastic lunch boxes, they're not something that I have any interest in. But so I've kind of been in and out of doing this for a long time. All throughout the 90s, I was buying direct from BMC and going to shows and conventions all up and down the East Coast. Back in the 90s when the Toy Show Network was huge, I could go to a weekend toy show pretty much every week from northern New Jersey all the way down into Virginia. And that was how I had a decent part-time job in my side gig all through the 90s and until my son was born in 99. And then I kind of cooled it for a little bit. And then I got back into it in the late 2000s. So.
Well, that leads into a question I was going to have just for Jeff. Jeff, for those that don't know, like some of the guys that are chatting in or watching the show, can you tell them about BMC and how you got started with that? If they don't even, know anything about it.
It's all weird. It's all real weird. I was just selling whatever I could get my hands on in early internet, e-commerce days. And one of the things that one of my part-time jobs was a wedding DJ. And so I had, and I would order the YMCA hats and stupid stuff and Lay's and stuff. And so I had an account with a novelty company, and I would just try selling stuff out of the novelty catalog. And everything I just leaf through and I'd look at it. All right, people might want that. They're hard to find these days. And one of those things was Plastic Army Men. And I'm like, I remember having the Cowboys and Indians when I was a kid. They were cool. And so I got them and started to sell them on eBay. And they sold well, but then the quality wasn't great. And then the quality got worse. And so I started looking for more. And one thing led to another. And now here I am. And I own a lot of I own a couple of brands and a bunch of the vintage molds. And I'm trying to keep the production going and keep the quality up high and bring it back to the toy market, stuff that was in the hobby market, and just doing lots of stuff, basically. It's all been organic, just keep trying stuff and do more of what works and less of what doesn't.
We talked about this earlier before we went live, and tell them about the female line of soldiers that you came out with that is pretty famous now, or?
Yeah, it's infamous, maybe. I don't know.
It's famous, man.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to when I was just kind of buying whatever toy soldiers I get to sell on eBay, and every now and then someone would ask me if I had any female soldiers, and you get that question a couple of times. Say, well, let's see, let me get some, and there just nobody made them. You can find some random examples of a nurse figure here or there in the 60s, but there was nobody making just female, military figures. And so I put it kind of in the back of my head, that would be a good original product to make if I ever get to that point. But there's lots of barriers to that. Takes a lot of money and expertise. Well, several years later, I got that question again, and this was after I had purchased BMC Toys and was getting into manufacturing a bit and had a little bit more resources, a little bit more, knowledge under my head. And this Joanne Ortloff, who is a retired Master Navy chief, she wanted some female figures, and I said, I don't have them, but I'd like to make them. And she was very persistent, said, no, you really got to do this, and you got to get off your butt and get it done. And so I'm like, all right. So I had my sister whip up some concept art, put up a blog post, say, if people are interested, just sign up for this email newsletter, and I get enough interest, I'll move forward with it. And so I kind of just left it there for a year. We worked on it. The initial reaction was they can't have long hair because that's not regulation. And I'm like, oh, how am I going to do little 2-inch figures without hair and have them show up as women without making them, pinups and, because I kind of had an idea what those customers wanted. They wanted something that represented military women, not something that, was more comic booky or adolescent looking. So, but then about a year later or so, customer asked me the same question, and I said the same thing. And she said, oh, here's a little letter that my daughter wrote asking, why aren't there girl Army men? And I said, oh, that's cool. And I said, this is a project I'm working on already. So if you're interested, just, again, encourage people to sign up for my email list. And when I get enough, mass there, I'll move forward with it if I can. Because I'll at this time, I kind of knew what was going to take to bring them to market and how much it would cost and how much time it would take. And, I wasn't really ready yet. And then somehow she had gotten into like a local news article, and then that kind of got some national attention. And she contacted a couple of different manufacturers, and I was the only one who kind of had something was even thinking about it. And so I became part of the story then. And then Steve Hartman from CBS News, he does the On the Road segments. He said, hey, we're going to be doing a story on this, and we're thinking of maybe stopping in Scranton for some B-roll on the way, because we're in New York and it's no big deal. I'm like, yeah, all right. And so we set it up with the local factory. I hadn't been working with that long, but it was a factory like 10 minutes from my house, and I never knew it was there up until 2018. It was really, really funny. And so Steve Hartman came, and instead of it just being like, hey, we're doing some B-roll, he did an interview with me. And, and then the floodgates were open, and everybody was contacting me and saying, hey, we want to interview you about this story and everything. And I got on all different news stuff and the national news and all the newspapers and international stuff. And it was, for a while, it was madness. Every day I was getting a new request for some national media thing. And I said, all right, I gotta do this. And I said, I'll do a Kickstarter. I said, I'll definitely do it. I'll do a Kickstarter, see if I can make it even better. And so I slapped together a Kickstarter campaign, and of course it got out of hand, and I added too many different figures to it and everything. And that's basically it. And so I dragged that project through during, the COVID period and got it done, and everyone seems very happy with it. So it's kind of something I thought of a long time ago, but I needed some encouragement, I guess, to actually make it happen, more than just a little encouragement. I mean, I had to be drag kicking and screaming really to get it, because it takes a lot. I held the first bag of the test soldiers in my hand, the female soldiers, and I was like, holy, it took me like $40,000 to get here. And I only it was the most expensive bag of toy soldiers I've ever held in my life. So that's and we still had a ways to go yet. It's still that was not the end of it at all. But
you also did that line of the Rosie the Riveter with the.
Yeah, I mean, while we were working on that, the sculptor, it was during the Kickstarter. He's like, hey, he suggested it, and I said, well, we'll do it a stretch goal, and people were really into it. So we kind of did that as an extra figure, and I thought the figure was so cool. I lost my mind kind of at the end, and I made the set too diverse. There's too many different figures in it. There's like 22 different figures in it.
Yeah.
And so I actually shrunk the Rosie the Riveter figure down and put her in as a mechanic in the set for posterity's sake there. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, that was kind of like an add-on. And it helped fund a lot of the sculpture we sold resin, handmade resin mold, sculptures of all of the figures. And that was really what funded, that's what the Kickstarter was really good for. It helped pay the sculptor for his time. And it just paid for all the additional sculpts and things like that. It really didn't fund making the molds or production that much at the end of the day, but because you got to pay, you still got to send everybody their stuff, and that costs a lot. But but yeah, the Rosie the Riveter was another original figure, and I thought she turned out. It looks like something that you could have gotten in a dime store, in the 50s or 60s, and that was the intent. I wanted this stuff to blend in as seamlessly as possible with that mid-century this style of realistic toy, which has kind of been left by the wayside. So
you completely succeeded in that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, I put a lot of work into each figure. I do a dossier of for the sculptor. It take me, anywhere from like 6 to 8 hours per figure of, giving them the reference material and the equipment. And, we really put a lot of time and care into it. It was not a slapdash thing, even though it was done in a very tight timeline. So did that kind of answer the question, or did I go too far with that, or not far enough?
Dude, this is your show, man, between the three of you guys.
It's leading me to a whole bunch of questions, because, I've been involved in the toy industry for quite a while too. And I remember and was part of several toy committee meetings back in 2009 when we had the whole phthalate scare and the Thomas lead tank problems. And of course that changed the phthalates and put in plastics. And especially when it came to the Army men, because prior to that, the Army men stayed fairly rigid in the plastic. And then after the or the CSPIA, whatever that act was that was passed in 2009 to
CPSIA, you are correct.
Yeah, the CPSIA. All those phthalates after that, some of the BMC toys, the figures they didn't hose in the bag. They would kind of get a little warped, and you'd have to kind of bend them back, and the plastic was a lot softer. And of course, I'm seeing that in some of the.
Now, are you now? I just not. I'm sorry not to interrupt you there, but I want to make sure we're clear. Are you talking about BMC, or are you talking about the Americana stuff made with the BMC Toys molds? Because there's some distinctions there.
I'm talking specifically because I was selling at our toy store from about 2009. Well, I started buying BMC direct in 2008 and was selling BMC toy soldier bags up until we closed in 2012, and I still had quite a few at that point. But yeah, I had some customers after the whole phthalate, and I think this was probably would have been in like 2011, 2012. And it wasn't just BMC; it was a lot of the plastics because of that.
I can shed a lot of light on this because this was my life for a long time there around that time. So in 2014, for those who don't know, Mattel imported some Thomas the Tank toys that were tainted with lead. And there was a big kerfuffle about it. And basically, the federal government passed a big law overhauling toy safety, mandating that all toys had to be safety tested. Every single manufacturing batch essentially was supposed to be safety tested, and very, very strict guidelines on both. Not just, originally it was all about lead, but it was expanded to other heavy metals, and then also phthalates, which are a plasticizer very commonly added mainly to things that are vinyl. So your softer plastics like PVC, and it really turned the whole toy industry on its head. And Mattel, who was responsible for the start of this, they lobbied to get the law passed in such a way that they could use their own testing lab, as long as it was kept sort of separate. Where everybody else, we have to pay for a third-party independent lab. But when we're getting to the phthalate side of it, the phthalates, I had the same issue that you had, Brad, where all of a sudden I was getting stuff in, and I'd been selling it for years, and a third of it would be broken in the bag. And it never made sense to me because the stuff that I was getting wasn't a plastic that should have phthalates in it to begin with.
Yeah.
But I think what happened, and we still don't know for sure, but I've talked to a lot of different people about this, because I would get in bags, and I could, back in the day when I was shipping everything myself, I could spot a broken, cannon from across the room in a plastic bag inside the case with the case taped shut. That's because you just get so tuned to it. And we think what was happening is because there were additional costs added, and they took a lot of materials away, and everything was, we think they were just adding a lot of fillers and a lot of regrind and a lot of garbage plastic, essentially. I don't think it was so much the phthalates issue as the overall change in the industry, but because I had some stuff, and it was not a plastic. It was high density polyethylene, which is really, really standard stuff. Used, it's one of the oldest plastics, very safe. You use it in a lot of your kitchen storage stuff and everything. And I would get these toys in, and you could just break them in your hands into like sharp shards. And I'm like, I can cut myself with this. This is awful. I can't sell this stuff. And I could never got a real answer as to what they were doing and why CPSIA changed the quality of the stuff so drastically, because it was like that. It was like overnight.
Yeah. And the reason I mention it, John, I mean, most people out there have no idea. And of course, the only reason why I have any knowledge of it at all is because I had a brick and mortar toy store at the time, and I was a member of the American Specialty Toy Retailers Association and was involved going up with the Toy Industry Association with those groups trying to get some more common sense laws passed than what that overreach was with the CPSIA in the first place. And I mean, it wasn't just the toy manufacturers itself, even it put burden on us retailers too, where if we couldn't prove that the manufacturers had product tested it and had safety tested it, then we had to do all the testing on it before we could legally sell it, which of course retailers weren't. So I mean, I had a lot of
bananas.
Yeah, and I had a lot of toy, like local small mom and pop toy shops or toy store manufacturers that, made wood toys or made other smaller type toys that I had to stop buying from and couldn't carry their stuff. And as they couldn't afford the product test, and I couldn't afford the product test for them. And of course, most people had no idea why those things were changed because of that law. So I was wondering how much, because I've been kind of out of that for a while. So I wondered how much it was still impacting you.
It's still a big deal. They relaxed a lot of things. They've made some common sense improvements to it. So things like natural materials like wood and ordinary paper products, you don't have to go crazy about anymore. And the plastics that don't normally contain phthalates, which like polyethylene, polypropylene, which is what most toy soldiers are made of. Toy soldiers. When we get into hobby stuff, they tend to be more PVC. Those don't have to be tested for phthalates anymore because they just weren't ever in there. So the irony is stuff like toy soldiers that are unpainted, the plastic was never, outside of some really early examples in the early days, there's very little issues with that stuff when it's made out of the typical plastics that we're used to. Both what we consider hard, and there's the whole question of hard versus soft plastic, but it's basically usually they're polypropylene or low density polyethylene or high density polyethylene, which is those are the three ones I try and work with. Some stuff is PVC, and then some stuff is styrene, like the kind of the model plastic stuff. But those types of plastics don't generally have, PVC is the one where they add the phthalates as a plasticizer. And the big problem that BMC had for a while there, because I sold the stuff around this time, this was before I purchased BMC Toys, was the bags breaking, because they were using the PVC bags and they would get cold, and when they get cold, they would shatter like glass. And we went crazy with that for a long time. And Bill McMaster, who is, BMC and BMC Toys is Bill McMaster Company, he worked really hard with the folks in Hong Kong to straighten that out, so we don't have too much trouble with that anymore. But for a while, that was nothing would ruin my day more than opening a case of soldiers and 30% of the bags are broken. It's like,
Especially when you're buying 50 bags of them at a time, right?
Yeah. Really.
Oh yeah.
When I was working at Antietam National Battlefield, that was a problem they had in the bookstores. Those old bags would be breaking. They'd open up a bin to start stocking. The bin is full of loose soldiers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Just acknowledge some people that chimed in. Gaming Newbie Ed. I think he's from Canada as well. He's always on the show. Glad you could join us. I think that was Logic Blaster was asking about Swap It figures. Do you guys remember the Swap Its?
Yeah.
Growing up? Do you guys collect
those?
Well,
I don't remember them, but I know about them.
Yeah.
I'm aware of them, but I didn't have them as a kid.
No. I get a lot of people asking me to make the parts that went on to the figures, but and they're still just a little too small for me.
I was going to say that's some small stuff,
so
man.
It is. So,
wow. Manny, we're going to wake you up, man. Those two guys were talking there.
Sorry.
I slept through the chemistry test. What did
I know, man. That's great, man. I didn't know we were doing science class tonight.
I'm sorry. I just didn't
want to. Hey, you should have saw Brad when he was talking 3D printing on my last show.
People freak out when they hear phthalates.
We're all just like, what? We're in an engineering class right now. We had no idea. But they loved it, man. They loved it. Hey, Manny, we're going to go with you on this one. Why do you think the kids aren't into the toy soldiers today like we were as kids? I mean,
I think they are.
You think they are?
Yes, I do think they are. I have tons of old plastics that just sort of got superseded in what I do. And I make up cartons of toy soldiers, just a mix of toy soldiers that I give to kids. I've given away a dozen of those cartons in the last 5 years. I think the interest is there. I think kids love to manipulate, toy soldiers, 54 millimeter.
Tactile, yeah.
They're made for kid hands. But there is, of course, the electronic distraction.
Yeah.
But I think kids can make a natural jump to toy soldiers through Lego minifigs, because Lego minifigs really are nothing more than small toy soldiers you can take apart. So I don't write off children in this industry at all. I think kids haven't been exposed to toy soldiers. That's the only thing. And I think when they are exposed to toy soldiers, it's why it's always so gratifying to see kids at the shows. I think once they get exposed, they get interested. Once they get toy soldiers in their hands, then welcome to the wonderful world. But the nut to crack is getting kids' hands filled with toy soldiers. How do we make that happen?
Yeah.
I'm trying.
I was gonna say, Jeff, you're right. You're right there on the front line there, brother. I mean, but you're selling mostly to collectors, yeah? Or no?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, collectors are. I have several baskets of customers, and collectors are one basket. But a lot of the toys, and I make them as toys, and I have them safety tested and go through that rigmarole because I want them to be able to be handed to a kid without anybody having a second thought about it.
Yeah.
And
Jeff,
so I do have some diehard kid fans, definitely.
Jeff, I think, and I take my hat off to you on this. I think, without denigrating your product at all, I think the greatest service BMC renders is that it is the entry point for children. Oh, yeah. They are cheap, accessible, plentiful toy soldiers. And I would watch kids walk out of the Antietam bookstore with an armful of BMC soldiers. And it's like, there you go, kid. There it is. Have fun. And I just think BMC does a wonderful job of making that happen.
We try, I'm basically at kind of the expensive side of toy soldiers or the cheap side of hobby figures, mm-hmm. So it kind of straddles that range. Yeah. And, because
but cheap doesn't mean breakable. Cheap means a little bit more inexpensive than
It means inexpensive.
Because what I mean? Yeah, it's not cheap as in,
Well, I call them premium
quality
cheap.
Stuff.
Yeah.
I call them premium cheap because at one time this stuff was everywhere and it was cheap and it was great stuff. Like it was, it was practically immortal and unbreakable, challenge accepted by kids. But then it became, because it doesn't have IP attached to it, intellectual property, it's just been degraded until it's just a blob of breakable junk, sold as cheaply as possible. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, has really harmed it as a perennial toy, Mm-hmm. And that's why I work really hard to try and make sure that the stuff is what it's supposed to be, which is a plastic figure that you can play with, you can knock down, you can bury it, you can dig it up, and it'll be just fine. And I get vintage examples. If I do collect anything, it's vintage examples of things that I'm trying to make today so I can compare them. And it's so cool when you hold up something that's from like the 1960s next to something that we made last week, and they're both just fine. Yeah. And that's really gratifying. So I do try and take all that into consideration when we're making the stuff. I want it to be made as toys. And because the collectors, there's no stigma against a collector buying it, even though it's labeled okay as a toy. So
these, Jeff, these World War II guys you're making, these Iwo Jima guys, you really stepped up your game on that. The Civil War guys you made, super simple. They painted well and could be used for a lot of stuff, but these guys just took it to a whole nother level with the detail.
Well, those were
and the animation.
This is all before I purchased BMC Toys, because Bill McMaster passed away in 2014, just very suddenly. And I was one of his bigger customers. And so I worked with his son to try and keep it going. So that particular set, the Iwo Jima set, those figures are licensed from King and Country, who make the metal version.
All right.
And so Bill had like a handshake agreement with them where they took those figures and they made a plastic version out of it. And that's why those are so nice, is because they started off with a really good sculpt. Whereas the D-Day figures, that was Bill McMaster's first set after he lost all of his molds. And he also lost kind of his partner that he had worked with on, making the masters for them. And so this was his first out. And so there were mistakes were made,
It's crazy because, I look at all of this as someone who plays with toy soldiers since I was a kid. But to hear you guys talk about the industry side of it is just mind-boggling.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. One reason I started selling stuff like plastic toy soldiers is because it's like, all right, I want to sell stuff is cool, but doesn't break in the mail, isn't too expensive, something I don't have problems with. Let me tell you, if there's a problem to be had with a plastic toy soldier, I've seen it. It's the simplest thing in the world, but there's so much that goes into it to get it from the drawing board to a good quality product. It's just crazy.
Now, Jeff, I got a question for you,
Sure.
directly related to BMC. When I was selling toys, and I agree with you, Manny. There's still a lot of kids that love to play with the Army guys. I mean, and when I had my toy soldier, we sold the heck out of BMC Toys, and it was a quick grab-on toy. Kids loved it. Any boys from the ages of 4 till about 9 or 10, they started to get out of it after they were about 10 years old, and then we kind of lost them to the video game craze. But yeah, there's that manipulation. Parents, of course, would ask me, well, what's it do? It's like it doesn't matter what it does. It has nothing to do. It's what your kid is going to imagine it do. Right, it has to do with the imagination more so than just pushing a button and seeing it do a little trick. So there's always that aspect too. But our number one seller of BMC Toys was all of the World War II stuff, followed by the Civil War stuff. Then after that, it was Revolutionary War, and then always trailing it was the Alamo, and then the San Juan Hill stuff was the least popular out of all of them. So does that kind of mirror what you're still seeing? And of course, now you've added some other stuff into the mix there too. But that was kind of where my sales found. Now, what I never understood, because World War II and the Civil War were my main things too. So I always kind of pushed those when kids would come, and I was always talking up those sets probably more so than the Alamo figures and the other stuff. I was just wondering.
You're real close, Brad, on your hierarchy there of popularity. BMC really hasn't had much Civil War since he lost the molds in '98. So a lot of the stuff that people think of as BMC Civil War soldiers were not ever produced. Were not produced by BMC. They were made by another manufacturer, completely out of Bill's control. So I would probably put Revolutionary War below, and there's been a lot of like kind of Civil War stuff you have to be real careful with now. Anything that even mentions Confederate anywhere can wind up being suppressed and even kicked off of sites. You can't have, I tried doing a set that had a flag in it, and I didn't use the battle flag. I used I think it's the second national Confederate flag. It looks very similar to the Betsy Ross flag, trying to be, find some good historical flag, but be respectful of people who are offended by the battle flag, the Dixie flag, whatever you want to call it. And no, they just ban it everywhere. So, so I think that has put a damper on the Civil War side of things. And but other than that, I think you're pretty close to what I see as far as the popularity goes.
What flag are you using for the World War II sets for the Germans?
I made up one. I made up a flag. It's a full flag, so it's and it's okay, but it gets the message across that it's a German flag. I don't like when they use a modern German flag. I think that's kind of hokey. So I did a red flag with an iron cross on it, something like that.
Jeff, for my Navarone for the German flag, I found a really great small scale paper World War I German naval ensign. It looks great. Looks beautiful.
I saw that. I had my eye on that.
It's got everything you want on it.
I didn't have the nerve to do it though.
Hey, if you don't mind, I'm going to pull Brad up big and can you show some of the 3D printed stuff you're doing for like the Navarone and that you're going to take to the show, or do you have anything handy?
I can go grab something real quick if you just give me give me 1 second. I'll grab something.
Yeah, we'll talk real quick. I'll acknowledge some people that were chiming in as well. GIA said his kids are, once they hit the older ages, they're on the video games. If you saw that, same with somebody else said it, Gary Curtis or somebody. Yeah, I'm afraid that kind of like the G.I. Joe stuff, I think we're losing kids, man, because I go to the shows all the time, and
to give you
40, 50, 60-year-old guys, and if we don't start getting the younger kids involved, it's going to be all video games all the time.
Give you like some numbers, some actual numbers, like back in the day when Marx was doing its thing.
Oh yeah,
they would do 50,000 play sets just to try it out, and they do a run of $250,000 of a good seller. And let me just tell you, I ain't doing anywhere near 50,000 of a play set in a production run at a time. So
who's your competition when it comes to play sets now? Is there anybody? Conte's not doing anything. Barzo's not doing anything. It's
kind of those traditional kind of history in a box toy play sets. I don't think there is a lot of competition right now.
Yeah, that's what I mean. There's nobody's doing play sets really.
But
anymore.
It's also not stocked in every store either. I'm mainly an internet retailer. It's getting bigger. Like I am getting, and I'm in a lot of museum shops now.
Yeah.
Nowhere near as much as like Americana Souvenirs. They've pretty much had that sewn up for a long time because they had all those good Civil War molds that BMC made.
Yeah.
So they had a good leg up on it.
Oh yeah, you go to Gettysburg, every store has peg warmers on every store.
There, so yeah, I've got 2 Civil War sets right now. That 2 bag sets. It's not and they're not the best that you'll find. So that's something we can work on at some point. Actually, I got some nice ones coming from the Classic Toy Soldiers collection. So I've got like a pack that's marks, both made with the original. There's the Unions, I think, are the original cavities that Classic Toy Soldiers bought and had put into a mold, and then I believe it's the Confederates that are reproductions. And so there's going to be a bag of those in pretty nice colors. I'm pretty happy with those coming out. So
now you're the only one doing Timmy though stuff, right?
Yeah, I purchased Timmy Toy last year because I had to. And it was awful. It was a tough process to go through because it was basically biting off.
Everything done there in Scranton?
What's that?
Is that all done in Scranton, or just half in Scranton and somewhere else?
No, originally, the past few years, Timmy Toy was produced up in Michigan, in Kalkaska, Michigan, and the owner closed the factory for a variety of reasons in fall of 2001. And so my stuff was the Timmy Toy stuff was supposed to be subcontracted out, but he never got a good fit for it. And so I was working with the local factory for the BMC Classic line, and it was a big business deal with all kinds of financing and stuff like that and madness. And so we moved it. I didn't get all the Timmy Toy molds, but all the kind of like the Army Men stuff and that genre, all those little 1/32 scale realistic style things. I got just about all of that, and it's in Old Forge, Pennsylvania, which is right next to Scranton. It's a couple little towns down because the factory kind of outgrew where they were at in Scranton, and they opened up a new facility because they were kind of hampered by the old building, which was 3 floors. It was a 3-4 brick building, and they just couldn't expand anymore. They make pool tools and accessories, and that's their bit. Yeah. So it works out good because they're busy. Like their season is coming to a close soon, from the manufacturing side, and I'm gearing up for
Christmas.
So it's nice because they're able, when they get good people now, they're able to keep them. They don't have to lay people off or cut hours or now and everything. So it's really worked out kind of nicely. It's you couldn't ask for better complementary seasonal buses.
Gotcha. And Brad Curry, he's got a staff of his family in the workshop.
The Be Active Toys was originally my son Clayton's idea. He helps me when he's not working on his forging and metalsmithing degree, but he was the one back in high school that talked me into 3D printing and getting that in there. Mainly, it's a tool and die machinist. It's like I said, it's love-hate relationship. So it took a while for him to convince me. But this is hot off the press since Manny had mentioned about the Guns and Navarone. That's one of the large cannon. So I don't have a whole lot of the assembled ones, but this of course is I take it off and then I will put it together and assemble it, and kind of where we're at with the cannons. That's probably the most popular line. James Wozniak stopped by last week and took a bunch of stuff to the Mark's show, so he's got most of the stuff that I had printed and ready to go.
I saw the video of him at your house.
Yep. So I got the flag posts. And one of the things that I do with that too is a Navarone, kind of the similar to the plug, and I know that the lighting. I don't know if I put that light off.
That's the top of the Navarone. Yep.
Yeah. Is that? I don't know if it comes better.
Back it up. It was better before. Yeah.
All right. Let me get that back on. So that's kind of a little blocky. The elevator for the Navarone set.
Yep.
So got that. Of course, I loved the bunk beds. Putting the guys on the bunk beds when I was a kid. So I
always wondered why they only gave you 2 when they had 37 guys on that.
Yeah. So we got I do just about everything for the Navarone, the ladders. There's the all the other play pieces, the benches, the tables, the radio. I sell that kind of like that. I'm doing a lot of other Mark's playset stuff too, but I tend to stay away. Like if I know BMC does some of the repo parts and some of the other guys that do repro, I try to stay and do some of the stuff that's not being done by others. But probably the most latest thing that I've been doing is parts for the Untouchables warehouse. There's the dock bay and the doors and the roof that goes on to the Untouchables playset. And like I was telling you guys earlier, I'm about to release different types of playscapes and play scenes, buildings that go along with them. So that's kind of where I'm heading, in the direction that I'm kind of heading. Some of it is based on my interest. Some of it's based on requests that I get from people asking me to do things. So that's very kind of what's going on in my 3D printing world.
So can you just tell the followers where you can buy your stuff?
Sure. Well, we've got our Facebook Be Active Toys Facebook page, and then of course on Etsy, I sell through the Etsy website. So if you go onto Etsy and just type in Be Active Toys, BEE Active Toys, or if you type in my name or Be Active Toys in Google search, it should all of my stuff should pop up on there too. So
I see Manny's up there taking notes. He's for his Guns of Navarone. He's placing another order there.
Let me know if you need a bigger one, Manny. So
Brad, what I would like to see someone manufacture are the old Mark's Battleground Dragon's Teeth. Because that's something you can use in many, many multiples on your toy soldier table.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that there was somebody that was doing a repro of those.
I haven't been.
I've seen foam ones. I haven't seen the plastic.
Okay. So
I've been.
By the way, I can make you something really big if you'd like, man.
Wow.
So,
I like
if you
that.
need any siege guns, I got the siege guns.
I was going to say, is that actually fire? You got a spring loaded out or no?
No, but I've got some prototypes that I've been working on with some.
Go.
There you go.
I got you covered.
So I do have, on a little smaller scale, there are these like this. So
beautiful.
Is that like a Mark's mold, or is that something you just came up with?
Nope, that's my own design. Well, I shouldn't say that because the cannon barrel, you can go online, and I try to stay historically accurate as much as I can. So there are websites where you can find that have dimensions of the different styles of cannons and stuff. It's not easy to find, and I couldn't even tell you where, because that was probably something that I was searching for about 3 or 4 years ago. But so I try to use documentation and historical records and stuff as much as possible. I've even been on certain battlefields with my tape measure, taking measurements and back engineering stuff when I've been on battlefields too. Probably, I don't know, Manny, did you ever run into anybody out there taking measurements of anything?
all the
I
time.
don't know what
We get model makers all the time, and they call us up and they want to know what are the exact dimensions of Burnside Bridge. I'm like, Jesus, I don't know.
Let me step it off for you.
Sometimes the ranger doesn't know.
Manny, you just made me feel a whole lot better because I'm like thinking, these rangers are going to come out here. What's this kook out here doing?
That's funny.
No, it happens all the time.
So, Jeff, any Toy Soldier shows that you're going to be at, or you don't go to those? You just sell?
No, my schedule is just so jam-packed, and I've got tendon issues from some pharmaceutical injuries, so travel is just not fun.
Gotcha.
I'd like to start doing it again sometime if I get my recovery back, but it's been like 16 years and I'm still fighting it. So we'll see how it goes. But I go, I should be able to go to West Virginia. That's not a big deal. I used to do stuff like that all the time. But
yeah, you're still pretty close to Gettysburg. I mean, that's a couple hours. If Thomas from Eastport comes from Hong Kong to Chicago, I might go just because I can't have him come from Hong Kong and me not meet him there, But I'm not looking forward to it. Just the pain of the travel and the scheduling stuff. That's all. But I would love to. It's just hard. I have to kind of balance, where I do the most good and most. Sure, yeah. Brad, you said you're going to the Kentuckiana. That's mostly GI Joe. Are you going to be selling your other stuff there, or just GI Joe?
Yeah, I do have at pretty much any of the shows I go to. Kentuckiana is the next one, and I'll be doing the Joe Lana toy show that's in August there. But yeah, no, I bring a full assortment of just about anything and everything that I'm making, and then of course some of the old other stuff too that I'm trying to sell as well. So I try to include a little bit of each. So
I went to the Gettysburg show a couple months ago for the GI Joe show, and I came back with a big gym trailer. So they'll sell anything at these shows, man. It's not just Toy Soldiers or back and forth. Manny, you plan on attending any shows this year? Or
I always go to the Gettysburg show, and I think I'm going to go to the one in August too. But
the fall,
now I hear the siren song of Wheeling, West Virginia. So maybe I'll go next year.
That's the where to go, man. I was kind of hoping Rick Eber or Glenn was going to join us tonight and fill us in on how it was last week.
Yeah, I tell you, having gone to the Kruger Toy Museum several times and going to that show there in West Virginia, that's every year in June. It's every time I've gone, the couple of times I've gone, it's always been a great time. Whether you're whether you're a Toy Soldier collector or Johnny West collector, there's something for everybody, and it's always good camaraderie between all of the collectors.
Yep.
With the Gettysburg show, I'm very fortunate because I only live 45 minutes away from Gettysburg, so it's real easy to pop up there.
Yep. Jonathan Toledo, thanks for chiming in, brother. I know you were sitting there watching. Well, guys, I hate to tell you, our hour's up. I told you it flies, man. I know. Look around. I didn't even get through half of my questions I was going to ask you guys, so And
hey, I also Paul, let me just
have my Toy Soldier game I wanted to play with you guys, but
I just want to shout out to Logic Blaster and tell him thank you.
Oh yeah, he chimes in. I watch his channel all the time. He's great. All right, quick quiz, guys, and this is Toy Soldier quiz, so you guys should have no problems with this. Okay.
All right.
I was told there would be no math.
Jeff's already answered 2 of the questions already, so it's kind of screwed. I only have 10 questions. All right, we're going to start with Manny.
Oh.
Originally, Toy Soldiers were made from what? And this is prior to lead.
Terracotta.
They did find some with clay, stone, and wood. So I guess clay would be pretty close to your terracotta, yeah? Brad, what do you say, Jeff?
Yes, I would.
You're gonna give him that? All right, we'll give him a point for that. All right.
I would have actually said wood myself, but
yeah, they said they found wood ones, stone, and clay. So. Yeah. Jeff, this one's for you. Toy Soldiers were first mass-produced in what country?
Probably Germany.
Germany is correct, sir. You are correct. Brad, the Plastic General, the Plastic Commander, Call of Plastic, and Toy Soldier 68 are all what?
Sounds like video games.
Nope.
What were they again?
I'll read them off to you. The Plastic General, the Plastic Commander, Call of Plastic, and Toy Soldier 68 are all what?
Those magazines about plastic soldiers?
They are YouTube channels dedicated to toy soldiers.
Okay.
I would have gotten that one.
Because Jeff, you give a lot of your stuff to the one guy. I think is it called Plastic or Army Man? Jessica Damo is always reviewing your stuff.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Every time I turn it on, he's like, another set. I was like, God dang, man. All right. We're back to Manny. What company made the first American plastic toy soldiers? It was in 1937, and it was not Marx.
I'm going to guess, and I know it's a bad guess, but I'm going to say Auburn.
No, sir. Jeff, any idea?
I used to know this. Where's Kent Sprecher when you need him, right?
Yeah, I know. Kent with.
Well, I'm sure Eber and Reidner would probably know that too.
If they're listening, they can chime in. If any of you guys are chatting along, you can jump in.
Auburn was a good guess.
Yeah,
I don't think
that's what I thought.
I don't think Tootsie Toy is a good guess. I'm just trying to think who was around in 37. It's too early for most of the ones I know. I don't know. I'm drawn up. 37 is awful early.
Yeah.
I don't think this is right, but the manufacturer that I know was really active at that time period was AC Gilbert. But I don't think he was doing anything. I don't think they were doing anything in plastic or in toy soldiers.
The answer I found was Benton, Beton.
Oh, Benton. That's it.
Benton. Brad, this one's for you. What is thought to be the oldest toy in America? Not plastic toy soldier, but the oldest toy in America.
The oldest toy in America.
Made in America. The American-made toy. Yep. It was actually made as a toy, not a homemade,
Not like one of those hoop and stick.
Like an assembly line, I guess you could say. Assembly line actually made as a toy.
Oh, wow. I don't know. Would it be like I would think like maybe some type of a doll?
No.
Nope. I have no idea.
No action figure, no doll, nothing like that. Manny?
I'm going to say a hobby horse of some kind.
Nope. Jeff?
No.
Best guess?
Flexible flyer, sled.
You were close. Radio flyer wagon.
Radio flyer wagon.
That was my first guess, and I second guessed myself. There you go.
In 1995, Toy Story, the movie, was released and gave a surge to plastic toy soldiers. In the movie, what were they called? In other words, the name brand or the company? Jeff. We're back to Jeff. Or no, Manny, right?
Oh, I was really hoping it wasn't me. So I'm going to go.
That's all right. I don't think anybody knows it because they're all staring at me.
I'm going to go with the old standby. Oh, yeah. They were called Acme.
No.
Isn't everything?
Is it everything Acme? Jeff, any guess?
Well, I mean, the bucket said Bucket O Soldiers.
You got it, brother. Bucket of Soldiers. Bucket of Soldiers.
Which was based on a Timmy toy Bucket of Soldiers.
Yep. I was going to say most of the poses are Timmy poses, right? The Vietnam type poses.
There's similarities. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. All right. Well, this goes to Jeff again, or do you want to give it to Brad? Let's see.
Give it to Brad.
All right, Brad. Early released tin soldiers were also known as blank.
Early release tin soldiers.
Tin soldiers.
Dime
also
store
known
toys?
as what?
Dime store toys. Dime store soldiers.
What did they used to call those soldiers? It's basically the way they looked.
Oh,
Manny?
Sounds like Manny.
Are we talking about flats?
Flats. Yes, sir. Flats is the answer. Very good.
Does it make
that was
the
maybe.
one?
The flats I'm familiar with were the comic book soldiers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mail away for 100 figures. Yeah.
And they were always
everybody's favorite disappointment.
The first plastic toy soldiers produced in Great Britain were made in 1946 by
Britons.
No.
Crescent.
No.
Cheerilee.
No. You guys are going to kick yourself in the butt because everybody has these or had them.
Airfix.
Airfix. Yes, sir.
Oh.
Airfix. 1946. What year did Little Green Army Men make it into the National Toy Hall of Fame?
Oh gosh, I put this
I
on
wanna
my
say,
ass. I should know this.
It's more recent than you think.
1995.
No,
Is
much
it in
later. Much
this-
later than that.
this century or last century?
This century.
It's like
2004.
2000. Nope.
2018.
it's either
Yep. Jeff Westgate.
2014
Yep.
or 2015.
Yep. 2014. 2014. Good guess.
It's
I
not a
can
guess. It's in my. I was literally reading it the other day. I still couldn't remember.
And my last question was, and I was going to save it, not for you, Jeff, but BMC Toys came on the market in 1991. What does BMC stand for? Because I never knew this. I had to look this one up. And I have every set, and I buy them all. And you kind of answered it earlier, but let's see. Does Brad remember?
Yeah, that was Bill Masters.
McMasters. Yeah.
McMasters.
Well, we went a little bit over an hour, but I hope you guys had fun. And I
Had a
still have
blast.
about 5 questions to ask you guys. So we might have to do this one again,
Let's do.
Figure out how Rick Eber can get the internet. Maybe they don't have that up in Syracuse, New York. I don't know, man. And
It's his is operated with coal.
it might be.
Yeah.
Well, I know at the shows he doesn't take credit card yet. It's strictly cash, man.
I know.
He's a cash guy. So
He,
All right, hey,
he
I wanna
put a
thank
honey hole
everybody.
in the Marks dump. That's where he is right now.
oh yeah, that's right. Hey, I want to thank all you guys for coming on. I want to thank everybody in the chats, and hope everybody enjoyed this. And I will see you next Monday, same time,
thanks.
same channel.
Thanks for having us, Paul.
Bye-bye.